You know those moments when you're lying awake at night and your mind keeps replaying the same mistake that you've made? Or that moment when someone's success makes your stomach turn and you start to hate yourself for feeling that way. Why do I feel so bad that he's successful? See, these emotions that we label as negative, the guilt that eats away at you, the anger that burns inside you, the jealousy that makes you feel small, or the fear that holds you back, what if I told you they're not really your enemies? What if these exact emotions that are holding you back could become the fuel for your growth? Let me share something personal with you. Back in 2020, I hit rock bottom. I had just returned from studying from overseas for 7 years. I thought I had it all figured out. And then COVID hit. And I was going through a rough patch. My marriage fell apart and I found myself back at my parents' house with no job, no plan, and a 1-year-old son to take care of. I was drowning in my own guilt. I was burning with anger. I was paralyzed by fear. And yes, I was envious. I was envious of people who seemed to have their life together. These emotions were destroying me from the inside out. But here's the thing, that breakdown became my breakthrough. And through relentless study, mentorship, and constant real-world application, I discovered something that was so deep and profound about these 4 emotional barriers that we all face, and has since helped hundreds of men transform their lives too. Now today I'm going to show you exactly what these 4 barriers are, and more importantly, I'm going to show you how to transform them from chains that hold you down into fuel that will propel you forward. See, most personal development advice tells you to overcome negative emotions. It tells you to push down or to fight them or to replace them with positive thinking. That these emotions aren't random and they're not mistakes in your programming. They're signals, they're tools. And when you understand how to read these signals and how to use these tools, that's when everything changes. Now we're going to dive into these barriers, but before we do, I need you to understand something crucial. It's that these barriers appear in a specific order in your life and they form a chain reaction. And when you're stuck, it's usually because it started with one barrier that triggered the other. And this is why most attempts to fix these emotions fail, because they're treating the symptom and not the source. But once you understand the sequence, you can start to break the chain and you can transform each barrier into a tool for growth. Let's start with the first and often most destructive barrier, guilt and shame. Now, there's something fascinating about guilt that most people completely miss. And that is, guilt isn't an emotion, or it's not just an emotion. It's a signal from your inner kingdom telling you that something is out of alignment. Think about it. When do you feel the deepest guilt? It's usually not when you make a simple mistake. The heaviest guilt that you feel usually comes when you've acted against your own values, against your own beliefs, when you've let someone down, or when you failed to live up to your own standards. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and I learned this the hard way during my darkest moments in life. And that is, guilt has 2 pathways that it can take you down. Path number 1, your guilt spirals into shame, and you start to believe that you are fundamentally flawed. I messed up becomes I am a mess. This path leads you to become paralyzed. Not physically paralyzed, but mentally and emotionally paralyzed. You begin to self-sabotage and you start to feel disconnected from others and from yourself. And the second path it can take you, it transforms you into repair. And this is the exact emotion that becomes fuel for positive change, for rebuilding relationships, for aligning your actions with your values. And the difference is not in the intensity of the guilt, it's how do you read the signal of guilt. Let me give you an example. Let's say you believe in God, right? And you commit a sin. When you commit a sin, you start to feel guilty about your sin. You feel guilty about the bad thing that you've done. Really, that's you saying, I feel bad because I did something that does not align with what I believe and how I feel and what my values are. Now that guilt can take you towards God so you can repent and apologize and take responsibility and accountability and confess. Or it could take you down this route where you start to become despairing of God and you say, why would God forgive me? And you start to create a shift and a distance between you and God. That's where you start to see guilt was there to help you navigate your conscience towards God and not away from Him. And this is just scratching the surface of how guilt can be transformed. In the full framework, we go deeper into the exact process of reading these signals and using each one of these signals for growth. But for now, I want you to try something. I want you to think about something that you're guilty about and ask yourself this question. Why am I really guilty? Which boundaries did I overstep? And what are the actions that I can take to make this better? Now let's go to the second barrier. And this is where it gets interesting. See, when guilt isn't transformed properly, it often morphs into something else. It becomes anger. It becomes resentment. And this is where most men get stuck. And your anger might be from guilt, and it might not be. But the truth is that anger isn't just an emotion either. The truth about anger is that It's a message about your boundaries. It's your inner kingdom's alarm system telling you that something needs to change. But here's the problem. Most of us were taught one of two things about anger. Either you suppress anger, be calm, be peaceful, don't let it show. Or you express anger. Let it out, don't hold it in, don't hold back. And both of these approaches miss the point entirely. Let me share something with you that changed everything for me. See, during my darkest days, I was carrying this heavy anger at myself, at my situation, at the world, and it was eating me up inside out. But then I learned to ask a different question. Instead of how do I get rid of this anger, I asked myself, what is this anger trying to tell me? What is the boundary that is being crossed? And that's when everything shifted. Because anger, when you learn how to read it properly, is actually giving you three crucial pieces of information. What matters to you deeply, where your boundaries are being crossed, and what needs to change in your life. If people didn't get angry, they wouldn't stand up for themselves when their boundaries are being crossed. Now think about the last time you felt truly angry, not just annoyed, not just a bit of frustrated, but deep burning anger. Was it random? Or was it connected to something you deeply value? Something that was threatened, something that was disrespected. And here's what's fascinating, is that when you learn to read your anger properly, actually becomes a compass. And instead of being trapped in your resentment, you start to use that energy to start setting healthy boundaries, to take decisive actions, and to protect what matters most to you. But, and this is the most crucial, this only works when you understand the whole system, because anger without wisdom becomes destruction, and wisdom without action becomes stagnation. So you need to be wise with how you approach your anger. So let's go to the third barrier, envy and jealousy. Now, this barrier is one that most men won't even admit. They struggle with it, but they don't admit it. And look, I get it. These aren't comfortable emotions to talk about. And sometimes they make us feel weak, they make us feel small, they make us feel unworthy. But here's something profound that I discovered through my own journey. It's that when I was at my lowest point, living at my parents', broken, I'd scroll through social media and I'd feel this gut-wrenching envy. Everyone in my proximity seemed to have it all figured out. And here's what I realized, and this changed everything for me. It's that envy isn't showing you what's wrong with others, it's showing you what's possible for yourself. Think about it. You don't feel envious of things that you don't actually value or you don't want. You don't feel jealous of someone's success in an area that you don't care about. Your envy is actually a mirror showing you your deepest aspirations. And here's where most men get stuck in a trap. They do one of three things with envy. They either deny it. No, I'm not jealous, I'm not envious, I don't care what others have. They let it consume them and they become more bitter and resentful. Or they use it as evidence of how they're not good enough. See, everyone's better than me. Everyone's succeeding. Everyone has that car. But there's a fourth option that changes everything. When you understand how to read envy properly, it can become a powerful tool for your personal growth. It becomes a GPS. Let me show you what I mean. You see, envy is actually giving you vital information about what you truly want, beyond what you tell yourself you should want. We're talking about the subconscious wants. And it tells you where you need to focus your energy and what's the next level that you're ready to reach. But here's the key, and this is something that we dive deep into in the full framework. It's that envy only becomes fuel for growth when you understand how to transform it properly. Otherwise, it just becomes another chain that's holding you down. A very, very heavy chain. The difference lies in a specific process of acknowledgement, redirection, and action that turns envy's energy into momentum. And now we've come to the final barrier, the one that underlines all the others, fear and anxiety. The silent killer of dreams, as they call it, the invisible war between you and your potential. But here's something that's going to change how you see fear and anxiety forever. It's that fear isn't a wall, it's a compass. It's not showing you what you can't do, it's showing you exactly what you need to do. Think about this for a moment. When you feel that knot in your stomach, that voice that's telling you to play it safe, to stay small, your heart beating, what's really happening? It's your inner kingdom trying to protect you. But here's where most men get it wrong. They think that they have two options, either be fearless, which is impossible by the way, or be controlled by fear, which is devastating. Now let me share something with you that I learned during my darkest moments as well. When everything in my life had fallen apart, I was paralyzed by fear. Imagine spending 7 years studying, coming back, you're 23 years old and you have nothing to show for it. You're afraid of failing as a father. You're afraid of starting over. You're afraid of not being good enough. But then I discovered something profound, something so awesome. It's that fear has a specific purpose in your inner kingdom. It's not meant to stop you. It's meant to prepare you. See, when you understand how to read your fear properly, you realize it's actually giving you a precise map of what needs to be addressed, the energy you need to prepare properly, and the focus that's required to execute effectively. I want to think about it. Have you ever been truly prepared for something, truly prepared, and still felt paralyzed by fear? No, because fear's job isn't to stop you. It's to ensure that you're ready. So now you see how these 4 barriers, guilt and shame, anger and resentment, envy and jealousy, fear and anxiety, that they aren't really barriers at all. They're signals, they're tools, they're raw material, raw ingredients for your transformation. But here's the crucial part, my friend, and this is why I created this full framework in the first place. It's that these barriers work as a system. They're interconnected. When you learn to transform one, it affects all of the others. And that's why trying to deal with them separately never works. You need a complete system that transforms all of these barriers into fuel for growth. Now, if what I've shared has resonated with you and you're ready to stop fighting these emotions and start transforming them into your greatest tools for growth, then I've got something powerful for you. And that is the complete 4 barriers to growth framework. And it's now available in the STR8N UP Academy. And this isn't just theory. This is the exact system that I've used to transform my own life and help hundreds of other men do the exact same. And inside the STR8N UP Academy, you'll discover that there's the complete transformation process for each barrier. There's the practical tools and exercises so you can implement this stuff immediately. But most importantly, you'll learn how to turn these barriers from chains that hold you down into fuel that propels you forward. Feel free to click the link in my description to get free access to the 4 barriers of growth framework today on the STR8N UP Academy. Until next time, Mohammed Dahani, I'll see you soon.